So whether or not there's even going to be a Halloween to speak of this year feels very much in doubt, depending on where you live, how much risk you wish to assume, and for those of us here nearing either the end or midpoint of America's bold experiment in how irresponsible your local elected officials wish to be. More than a few people were looking clearly for at least something fresh and seasonally appropriate to throw on in the rotation for spooky season under quarantine, and surprisingly, yet perhaps inevitably, the call was answered by Adam Sandler, whose Happy Madison production company and the extremely profitable deal with Netflix now offers up a Halloween treat that could well end up being the streaming giant's answer to a generational staple like The Great Pumpkin. That's not to say that Hubie Halloween is any sort of serious challenger to Charlie Brown's throne as the seasonal standard, but it's easily one of the best attempts anyone has made at this point to create a new Halloween classic in the family comedy genre, and also far and away the best straightforward comedy in the Happy Madison house style that Sandler has made since the original 1990s blockbusters that kicked off his feature career in the first place. Fresh off wowing the serious film-going world with his grown-up actor chops and uncut gems, the pride of Manchester, New Hampshire here returns both spiritually and thanks to some clever cameos and throwback references literally to the funny voices, naughty kid slapstick, and good-natured earnestness of his salad days as though he'd never left, and hot damn for a moment there if it doesn't feel like we're all right back in 1996. Filmed in and around Salem, Massachusetts, and set during the town's famously big-scale Halloween celebrations, the film positions Sandler's Huey Dubois as yet another beloved, misunderstood mama's boy with an affected, socially inept adult child persona who's been universally the target of the town's bullies and their children and their children's children his entire life, but somehow has avoided turning in any way resentful about it, instead owing in part to his supposed family history as a descendant of a lone dissenter speaking out against the infamous Salem witch trials. Hubie has appointed himself the town's unofficial Halloween safety monitor, patrolling the streets with his bike and gadget-packed Swiss Army thermos, which combined with Hubie's voice and characterization leads me to suspect that this may have at one point been intended as a feature spin-off for Sandler's old Canteen Boy SNL character. There's a deep cut. Just trying to be as helpful as he can be, even though he mostly just absorbs more abuse and humiliation. It's both a running joke and a source of action comedy hijinks that he's been dodging projectiles and pranks for so long he's basically become a ninja without even realizing it. But this Halloween he'll need that, as there's a full moon and actual trouble now seems to be afoot. An allegedly dangerous mental patient with ties to Salem has escaped from a nearby institution and may already be stalking from the shadows. Hubie himself has begun to suspect that his suspiciously friendly new neighbor might be a werewolf, and either or both of these happenings may be related to a sudden spate of disappearances and at least one unexplained animal killing, and whatever is going on quickly engulfs not only Hubie's insistent need to help, but also Julie Bowen as the lifelong high school crush he still pines for, her adopted foster children of varying ages, Kevin James as a local cop, and a murderer's row of familiar comedians, character actors, and rising stars from the Happy Madison cinematic universe of people Adam Sandler is friends with and likes to do movies with. You know, Tim Meadows turns up, Maya Rudolph, Steve Buscemi, Rob Schneider, Colin Quinn, Kenan Thompson, Ray Liotta, and even a few surprises that I won't spoil, and there's also a large sampling of young stars from various Disney, Nickelodeon, one of the Stranger Things kids, filling out a more robust than you'd expect youth-centric B-story that solidifies a sense of generational complement to the 90s standard nostalgia atmosphere. Sandler's no stranger himself to lighter family versions of this routine, to be sure, but the specific target audience this time really seems to be Gen X and older millennial longtime fans who've been specifically waiting for a contemporary old-school Adam Sandler movie to show to their kids and thus introduce them to this guy who was the funniest dude in the world when I was your age. And viewed through that specific lens, Hubie Halloween feels wildly successful, even as most of the standard criticisms one can apply to the Netflix original comedies are all very much in play, in terms of a shaggy structure, a few too many characters, wildly varied tone and balance, and a general sense that if this was at least trying to get into theaters, it would have taken one or two more edits before saying, nah, that's fine. But it's strengths, particularly the ones that will be amplified for the younger audiences for whom the just scary enough horror movie business and the just grown up enough naughty comedy will be fairly fresh, are very strong. Hubie might be the best version Sandler has yet achieved of this type of characterization that he's returned to so many times since Canteen Boy. The don't bully but also don't let being bullied define your life messaging is very sincere, even though, yes, the film is having some fun on the meta level at the expense of overstuffed whodunits, the multi-suspect Scooby-Doo mystery of what what's actually going on is pretty engaging, and the ultimate payoff, even though, you know, grown-ups will intuit that it has to end in a mostly safe place, is actually pretty dark once it gets there. And there's even an admirable level of nuance in understanding why Hubie is both a little too much, but also where people go too far, and that he's a good guy, but also that he does have his own issues to work out. Yeah, in the context of a movie that's mostly concerned with getting big laughs out of Sandler doing pratfalls and a funny voice and letting the supporting cast riff until they hit the comedy gold, but effort makes a difference, and it's really clear that the Happy Madison crew really went the extra mile this time, and it shows. And speaking as someone who's adjacently local, it's also the first time in forever that a Salem movie actually feels like the real place in its Halloween aesthetic. You know, it gets that basically right. Points for that. What it comes down to is Hubie Halloween is a really good Adam Sandler movie, a really fun family comedy, and a pretty terrific Halloween movie in general that I really think could end up being a yearly favorite for a lot of people. So I had a lot of fun with this. Giving it an 8 out of 10, really enjoyed it.